So this is CeBit 2011. It is March. It's the 1st of March. It's the first day of CeBit 2011. And we're looking forward to this extremely interesting topic of eye tracking. And there is one company that I know that is really sort of the most interesting company in this domain. Very precise eye tracker. Maybe not a clear vision, but a broad vision, what eye tracking can bring to us and what eye tracking can mean to our usage of computers. And so we're looking forward to our next speaker, Anders Olsson. He's coming from Tobii Technology. And Tobii Technology, of course, they are exhibitor here in hall number 9. I don't know exactly where will we find you in hall 9? Do you know it?
I think it's C15.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's not C15. C13. C13 in hall 9. I know C15 couldn't be right because that is where Hasso-Plattner Institute is. Okay, C13. It's orange. It's Tobii Technology, and we're looking forward to talk of Anders Olsson. The future is eye controlled. Eye control is a powerful natural interface and enhances the way we can interact with our computers. So, give a big hand to Anders Olsson.
When I tell people I work with something called eye control, a very common question that's thrown back at me is, so do you mean you can just have the computer follow your eyes and then move the mouse pointer to wherever you want to look, and then if you want to left click, you do this? If you want to right click, well, of course you do this. And most importantly, if you want to double click, you do that. My answer to that question is always the same. Well, yes, of course, if you want to, you can do it that way. The technology is definitely mature enough and ready, and this is one thing you can do with your computer. However, nobody really wants to do things that way because as things turn out, our hands are actually a great input device, and the keyboard and mouse works very well for typing, pointing, and clicking. Despite this, eye control is something that's very powerful, and I'll get back a little bit to that later. But first, let me just give you a brief introduction. My name is Anders Olsson. I work for a company named Tobii Technology that's about 10 years old. We've been building eye trackers for almost the same amount of time, and we see a rapid growth and a rapid introduction of eye trackers into all kinds of new applications and industries. Today, more than 1,000 commercial customers use our eye trackers, and almost 5,000 private people use Tobii eye-controlled solutions in their everyday life. So a short history of eye tracking technology. It's actually quite an old technology, much older than people think. It goes back in time almost 100 years or something like that. The very first eye trackers were kind of scary. Actually involved putting contact lenses on people's eyes, and for the very, very first ones to actually have little needles sticking out of those contact lenses so you could see the eye movements that way. Even though the technology developed slightly and the needles disappeared, the technology, for obvious reasons, never caught on at the time. But a while later, when the need to put something in the eyes disappeared, video-based eye trackers came along. To be able to measure eye movements, all you had to do was put somebody in a chin rest, make sure the person was very still, and you could film the eyes very close up, and that way gather data about how and where the eyes are looking. And that made it possible to bring in eye tracking into the world of academic research. It's a famous quote, or at least we within Tobii think it's famous, that says, "The eyes are the window of the soul." And it's very true, and it's very, very powerful for researchers to be able to follow eye movements of people. Especially babies. You can't really interact with them in any other way. It's very hard to ask a baby, are you capable of following this ball? But it's very simple to put a baby in front of an eye tracker and see what they're observing, what they're not observing, and draw conclusions based on that, how they're developing. As time moved on, if you go back in time about 10 years, remote eye trackers started appearing. That's when Tobii came into the picture. No longer was there a need for the chin rest. And also, just as importantly, the eye tracker was built into the screens so that they disappeared from your vision and they became very discreet. Now it was possible to sit in front of your computer screen just the way you would sit in front of any other computer screen while the computer is measuring where you're looking. So the technology does the same thing. It measures where the eyes are looking at a screen, but the way it does it becomes more and more refined. When remote eye trackers came along, eye tracking became a very powerful communication device, especially for people that had no other way of communicating. People that are severely physically impaired and are paralyzed. It's very common that you get paralyzed from here downwards. And their eye tracking and eye control became the window, so people who could previously not talk anymore could start talking by looking at images, pictures, words, letters, whatever on the screen that's mounted onto their wheelchair, and start communicating with the world that way. A couple of years back, we introduced something called embedded eye trackers. Again, functionality stayed the same, but the eye trackers started becoming smaller, consumed less energy, and became cheaper to produce. And you could start integrating eye trackers into other types of solutions. For example, an eye tracker can be very useful to integrate into a car to detect drowsiness. If somebody falls asleep in front of the wheel, that can be quite a deadly experience. But with an eye tracker that measures the eyes and notices when the eyelids start falling down, can warn you before you start falling asleep. And just give out a signal or put on the windshield wipers or in any other way get your attention and make sure you wake back up. Or just tell you, you really need to take a break right now. Similar ways, eye trackers can be used in medical diagnostics, security, and there's a whole wide array of ways that these type of eye trackers can be used. But the focus of today's talk is eye control. And with this kind of an eye tracker, you get all kinds of situations where even though the hands still are very great as an input device, the eyes can provide an extra benefit that the hand simply cannot do. In operations rooms, eye tracking is very useful and eye control is very useful. If somebody is busy with both their hands in an operation, it's very useful not to have to move those hands, but to be able to continue the operation, but just look with your eyes and get the additional information you might need while you're doing the operation. Also, eye control is very clean. With an eye tracker, you don't have to touch a screen, touch a keyboard, or touch a mouse, which of course, as soon as you do that, it makes your gloves non-sterile and you would have to throw them away and put on new gloves. Traffic control rooms is another important area where eye control can provide value. Of course, in theory, if you work in an air traffic control room, you should be spending your day closely monitoring all those airplanes on the screen and make sure that they don't come too close to each other. But if you do that the whole day, you might get tired after a while, and you might be more interested in watching the basketball game, as is happening in this picture. In that situation, it's good if the computer can just provide you a friendly reminder. Hey, there's actually something important happening here on the screen. Please pay attention. Make the dots that symbolize the airplanes blink a little bit extra, or just tell the person that you need to be focusing on what you were just focusing on. Control rooms are also very complex situations with a lot of information displayed, and typically that's solved with a lot of different screens with different information on every screen. Now with an eye tracking enabled computer, the computer knows where you're looking, it knows what you're attending to, and it can expand the information based on what you're attending to, and therefore simplify the environment for the person working in those situations and provide them with information in a more efficient and seamless way than what was previously possible to do. This is one of my favorites. If you go back in time 25 years ago or something, if you wanted to get people to start playing an arcade game, all you had to do was just put an arcade game somewhere and have a joystick and a few buttons. And it would be exciting enough to get all kinds of people to line up and start throwing in the Euros or D-Marks or whatever we had at the time and start playing these games. Nowadays, that's not really the situation. Any kid will have an arcade game in their home, and these simple basic solutions are just not compelling enough to get people to play arcade games. Instead, we have all kinds of advanced games where you're either stepping around on dance mats, have real guns to shoot with, play the real drums, real guitar, or even sit in a real car simulator or a motorcycle simulator as you're playing an arcade game. Now here, eye control can add an extra dimension that you don't get and just provide a wow experience. We've built a simple prototype on a game where you play asteroids, but you just play it with your eyes. Aim at the different asteroids that are attacking the world with your eyes, and it's a fun experience and adds that extra little dimension to make eye tracking useful in arcade gaming situations. When I looked up the word ergonomic mouse on Google Pictures, I came up with this picture. It's not an ergonomic mouse as such, but it explains and shows the extent that people are willing to go to when they start getting a pain in their back from using a mouse. This guy looks very relaxed, and of course he's very happy to be able to sit in this very comfortable position as he's controlling his computer, but in a typical office environment, nobody really gets this kind of luxury. And instead, people end up sitting like this, getting quite a severe pain in their back, in their arms, or other different places. When that happens, people are just usually told that, well, just sit up straight and all the back problems will go away. You're not going to have a pain in your back anymore. But often that's not enough either. And people are given more and more advanced, complex instructions of how the screen should be angled, what distance from the screen you should be sitting, how you should be holding the mouse, etc., etc. And all these things are pretty hard to think about at the same time as you're trying to do your ordinary day-to-day job. So, for that reason, all kinds of ergonomic mouses have been introduced. There's the ones that you hold vertically, the ones you put on your hand, there's even ones that you put on your finger, there's the ones that consist of little scroll bars right beneath the keyboard, etc., etc., etc. However, no matter how many innovations that show up that involve moving the mouse pointer around, they all have the same problem. You have to use small muscular movements to get that mouse pointer moving, which can give you a pain in the back. And the ideal solution is then, of course, just to take all these mouses away. And for somebody that has a problem using a regular computer mouse, it's ideal to instead control and point with the eyes. Earlier today, Tobii Technology made an announcement to the press that's the definitive starting point of a 5th generation of eye trackers, bringing eye tracker and eye tracking into consumer computers. This over here is a fully functional conceptual prototype built by Lenovo, the world's 4th largest computer manufacturer. Looks like that. It's a conceptual prototype, so it's not going to go out into the market, at least not in this form. Slightly larger than what you would expect from a typical laptop, but it still works. It has all the laptop functionality that you'd expect from a Lenovo laptop, and it also includes eye control provided by Tobii Technology. Now, why do you think Lenovo wants to put eye control into a laptop? Going to get back to that in just a second. And the simple answer to that question needs me to go into a little bit something called natural user interfaces. And I'm going to introduce you a little bit to the world of natural user interfaces. If you go back in time a few years, when new computers came out, new laptops, new desktops, whatever kind of computer, was all about increasing the performance a little bit. This computer was slightly faster than that one, and this would be the high-end computer that everybody would want to buy. The screen was a little bit bigger, if the graphics card was a little bit faster, if it had a little bit harder hard disk, whatever it might be, that's how the computer manufacturers were competing. Today, that's not the case anymore. It's not about performance anymore. It's about providing an optimal user experience. Going back to 2010, we can look at two very big major consumer electronics launches that were made. And they're both centered around the idea of providing a more strong user experience. Beginning of 2010, Apple launched the iPad. And it quickly became the fastest ever piece of consumer electronics introduced onto a market, with 3.3 million units sold in the first 3 months after launch. This is not an iPad, it's just an iPhone. I tried to convince my boss that I need an iPad for this session, but he didn't fall for it. I didn't get to buy one just to hold the speech. But the point is that I, like everybody else, wants one of these iPads because they're kind of nifty. They're really easy to operate. When any handheld device, it's really nice to just be able to touch it, to look at whatever you want to look at. You can just zoom into something if you're looking at a map, and you can scroll pan just by simple swipes of the finger. And it's a really nice user experience. And it made the iPad very successful. Towards the end of the year, Microsoft launched something called the Xbox Kinect that actually ended up selling 4 times as fast as the iPad had been at the beginning of the year. Now, when you get further and further away from a computer, when you're really close, it's really nice to be able to touch things. When you're kind of half far away, you can still be used the keyboard and the mouse. But if you get very far away, reach it anymore. And then gestures are an ideal way to communicate. At this distance, if I'm moving around, I can't access any computer mouse. I can't touch any screen, but gestures are ideal. Now, of course, they're ideal partly in games such as this one, where it's just an exciting experience to be able to move your hands around, move your legs, jump or whatever, and have the game understand what you're doing and contribute with action. But it's also used as a user interface to switch between TV channels, browse the web, etc., etc. And we're going to see during 2011 all kinds of gesture-based input devices appearing on the market, especially for distances far away, to control your TV, browse the web, etc., etc., whatever you want to do on a TV, basically. So when you're close, you have touch, and when you're far away, you have gestures. But what do you have in between? When you have that keyboard and the mouse that actually works quite well? Well, one thing is very certain. There's a clear demand to get the user interfaces to evolve, also for laptops and desktops. These are a couple of very powerful quotes from a couple of very powerful people. A couple of months ago, the CEO of Intel said, "We're trying to show that the user interface of the computer, now that you have this kind of performance, is going to change." He's trying to say that when the Intel chip gets more and more capable, it provides more and more capabilities, and they want to use that to provide more interfaces. Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, a couple of months earlier said, "While using a mouse to direct a PC once seemed natural, it doesn't seem so now." All the same, when I look at my laptop, it still has the same keyboard and mouse that it's always had, and there's not that much that has really changed. And that's where we believe eye control can provide a lot of value. While the hands are a great input device, eye control is the ideal complementary natural user interface. And here's why. When I sit or stand, as in this case, in front of my eye control laptop, a lot of things start happening that weren't happening before. My computer is starting to understand me in a way that it wasn't before. It's paying attention to me even when I'm not typing or clicking. I can sit back and relax, not have my hands on the keyboard, and the computer can still respond to what I wanted to do, or I can speed things up. Just make my interaction with my computer go a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. And here are a few examples of how this can be the case. My computer understands me. If I'm looking at, as in this case, if I look up at the top corner of the screen and I see a weather gadget that displays the weather today, it expands just a little bit. Not a lot to scare me or anything, but just a little bit politely, and provides me with additional information about what the weather will be all week. I look away, it shrinks back down. If I look down at the taskbar comes up. If I look back where I was looking before, taskbar goes away. If I accidentally hit caps lock, which I often do, which previously drove me crazy, because when I accidentally hit caps lock, I end up writing a whole sentence in capital letters. Now when I do, the computer knows where I'm looking, and it can provide me with a little discrete message: caps lock on, caps lock off, right where I'm looking, so I don't have to worry about making that mistake anymore. My computer understands me. I love having a very nice and bright screen on my laptop. Here I've fired it up so I have the maximum strength illumination on my screen, because it's nice. At the same time, it's annoying when I run out of battery so quickly, and I ended up putting an extra battery on my laptop here so as not to run out of batteries. But at the same time, I'm not spending a lot of time looking at my screen, at least not right now. I'm directing my attention this direction. And during that whole time, the computer is just wasting energy. It's just burning up my battery for no use. Since my computer is now paying attention to me, it dims down the screen immediately. As soon as I look away from the computer, and when I look back at the screen, it becomes stronger again. Everybody has a different strategy for moving their mouse around and controlling the mouse pointer. I'm one of these people that often move my mouse around a little bit just to sort of keep track at the back of my mind of where the mouse pointer is, in case I want to click at some point in time. My eye control laptop, that's not necessary. It knows what I'm attending to, and as soon as I grab the mouse pointer accelerates right to where I want it to be. I still use my mouse to click because I like the feeling of being in control, and my hands are good for that. But the eyes are ideal for pointing, and that's how the eyes complement the hands. Sometimes I just want to sit back and relax, read a web page, do whatever, look at YouTube movies, and then it's nice to just be able to sit down in a comfortable position in front of my computer. Now usually my screen's not big enough to show a whole web page, but that's no longer a problem. As I start reaching the bottom of the web page, it politely and nicely scrolls up a little bit for me, so I can read the whole web page without moving my hands at all. If my screen's not wide enough, or my window's not wide enough, it pans for me as I look towards the end of the window, etc., etc. If I'm looking at YouTube movies that are just 30, 40 seconds long, that can be annoying because I have to get back up and click at the next YouTube movie, get back up, click at the next one. Eye control, I don't have to do that. When I'm finished looking at one, suggest a few other YouTube clips, just look at it, and that fires up immediately for me. It's very relaxing. With just one click, I can end up anywhere in the world that I want to end up within Google Earth. It's kind of nice, actually. I start off with the whole world in front of me, just click a button once. Since the computer knows what I'm interested in, it'll keep on zooming around the part of the world I'm looking at, and just continues to do that again and again and again, until I, as in this case, end up right at the Arc de Triomphe, which is where I wanted to go. It's effortless and comfortable. Often it's the opposite. I want to speed things up. If I want to get things done, I want things to appear right away. People are doing a lot of task switching nowadays. You might be doing your emails, Skyping, chatting with somebody, surfing the web, and in a document at the same time. You spend a lot of time going from one window to another. The eyes are ideal to show what you're actually interested in, what you're actually paying attention to. And by just holding down one button, I get all my active windows to appear. I naturally look at the one I'm interested in. I release the button, and the window that I'm interested in fires up and becomes the next active window. Browsing through my unread email goes almost twice as fast as it did before, because as I look through the email headers, I get right away information about the full emails right beside me. And that's also very nice. And even more interesting, when I look into the emails as such, I can see which part of the email that I've read before and which part of the email I haven't read before. So if I want to search through some part of the email that I know I've already read, I only have to look at the parts of the email that are marked as read. Look at those paragraphs that are marked that way. If it's the opposite situation, if I started reading an email before and I now want to finish it off, the email browser can tell me which part of the emails I've read, and I can just finish off by reading the other parts of the email.
Sorry.
Things go a little bit faster for me. Things are a little bit more efficient.
We have to prepare the stage.
What's that?
We have to prepare the stage now for the next
Okay,
event.
it's almost finished.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I'll
I'm
round
sorry.
things up.
Yes.
So, as you see, I can do all kinds of things. This is another example in CAD environments, but I won't get into that right now. 2 more slides? Yeah, I'll round off. Games is another great one. My games have never been more exciting than they are now. If I look at a game, I can get the characters to look back at me, which they didn't before. So in an adventure game, if I look at a man who look back at me and start talking, almost scary, some people might think, but it definitely makes the games more exciting. So the future is eye-controlled. At least that's what we within Tobii think. Lenovo have already built a conceptual prototype, and partnering up with the right device manufacturer, we can definitely bring a computer that's eye-controlled into consumer electronics within a couple of years.
All right.
The time is ready to bring natural user interfaces to our laptops and desktops. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Anders Olsson. He comes from Tobii Technology, and you can get much more information here at hall number 9, C13. That's Tobii Technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you.